Just how poor was people's hygiene during the French Revolution? Today we think of 1700s-era France as a period of filth and unparalleled squalor. Although this is largely untrue, there is some truth behind it. For a variety of reasons, people's views regarding personal hygiene were less stringent throughout the 18th century than they are today. In an era before the several contemporary comforts we take for granted, maintaining personal hygiene was costly and logistically challenging. In addition, experts at the time thought it unhealthy to be overly clean. As the century came to a close, advancements in science and medicine demonstrated the advantages of cleanliness, and the benefits of hygiene gained traction. Even so, the affluent were nonetheless privileged to enjoy cleanliness. Welcome back to History Rediscovered. In this episode, we discuss the most nasty hygiene practices during the French Revolution. The goal of the French Revolution, 1789 to 1799, was to grant broader rights to all citizens, and it fundamentally changed the political climate of the nation. But it also brought about changes in everyday French life, especially personal cleanliness. While taking a bath is often considered a mere habit for many people in the 21st century, during the French Revolution, hygiene was a contentious political matter. Bathing was considered dangerous due to poor water quality. There was a common misperception that nobody took baths in France in the 1700s. According to one tale, King Louis XIV only ever took 3 baths in his life. Actually, Louis was quite careful about hygiene, and he used his Turkish bath at the Palace of Versailles quite a bit. But not many other folks took frequent baths. For most of the 18th century, the majority of people lacked access to clean water. In any case, the majority of individuals thought taking a bath was bad. It was common knowledge that using hot water to expand one's pores could invite a variety of skin conditions. Filth on the body acted as a sort of de facto shield against disease. Most just rinsed their hands, faces, and nether regions with as little water as possible after taking sponge or dry baths. Ultimately, taking a bath became a political statement. The notion that taking a bath is a healthy habit gained traction gradually. Scottish physician William Buchan didn't publish his instructive book, Domestic Medicine, until 1769, which urged readers to take regular baths. Positive bathing was still relatively new in France during the 1780s. Bathing was only a practical choice for the wealthy, even if one did acknowledge the health benefits of the habit. Since there was no running water at the time, getting water meant going to the nearest accessible source, which was probably contaminated, and carrying it back to the house to heat it. The debate about citizen access to the water was so intense that it spurred the French Revolution. In 1793, the National Convention's Committee on Salubrity declared that good hygiene was a fundamental right of all healthy citizens. Individuals sprayed themselves in fragrance. As you may guess, folks were frequently extremely ripe because to their occasional bathing. The majority of people chose to cover up their innate musk with perfume rather than put up with constant body odor. Many people thought that perfumes could have a medical element in the early 1700s, which is why a wide range of substances were used. Fox lungs, viper flesh, bear fat, wolf liver, salamander ashes, and oil of worm were among the ingredients in some recipes. Some recipes called for valuable ingredients like pearls, silver, gold, or even human fluids. These scents would be smeared across the entire body, including the hair. Perfumes were exclusively utilized for scent at the century's conclusion. Burners were used to distribute scents, and some affluent homes had perfume fountains. The French nobility lavished a lot of money on scents because they were so beautiful. 18 ingredients, including orange flower, petit grain, bergamot, lavender, lemon, galbanum, iris, violet, narcissus, lily, tuberose, vanilla, cedar, sandalwood, amber, musk, and benzoin went into making one of Marie Antoinette's favorite recipes. Everybody had lice, and their wigs were too. Lice is another unintended consequence of infrequent bathing. Although we now consider lice to be an irritating annoyance, in the past, lice have been linked to the spread of diseases like typhus. The French elite started shaving their heads and donning extravagant powdered wigs as a means of warding off lice. However, this did not prevent the lice infestation. Instead, the lice moved onto people's wigs. Worse, hair product formulas frequently included substances that lice adore. A pound each of sheep suet, fat, pig sweet, 16 apples cooked in rosewater, rosewood oil, bay leaves, bergamot orange, or macassar oil were all ingredients in one hair pomade recipe. Eventually, boiling or baking the lice-infested wigs would rid them of the infestation. However, just like baths, powdered wigs were out of reach for the majority of people due to their high cost. Exquisite powdered wigs were considered a bourgeois status symbol during the French Revolution and were eventually out of style. Rather, many under the new regime started wearing more simpler hairstyles. The hospitals were filthy and overcrowded. France's hospitals in the 1700s were very different from those there now. A hospital in the 18th century was more like a shelter for the impoverished and orphans who came there for free medical care, food and shelter from the weather. The state of these hospitals was appalling. The facts of France's healthcare system were detailed in Mémoires sur les hôpitaux de Paris, or Memoirs on the Hospitals of Paris, written by French surgeon Jacques-René Tennant in 1788. The L'Hôtel-Dieu, the primary hospital in Paris, was criticized for being filthy, packed, and prone to fires. When someone in good health needed a place to sleep, they would frequently bunk right next to a patient who was ill. Modernizing French hospitals was one of the policy objectives of the French Revolution, and Tennant's work raised awareness of the problem. Paris was just as unsanitary. With 600,000 residents, Paris was the second biggest city in Europe in the 18th century. Without contemporary public sanitation, however, it essentially became a cesspit. One might find themselves ankle-deep in a mixture of chamber pot slush, industrial effluent, grime, sludge, blood, and animal entrails on a straightforward stroll through Parisian streets. It was not until 1852, with the coronation of Emperor Napoleon III, that the city installed a contemporary sewer system. Even the Versailles Palace was filthy. Versailles is among the most magnificent palaces ever built, yet it was also a massive outhouse. Due to the wetland on which the palace was constructed and the practically continuous building that took place there between 1682 and 1789, dust and grime were a regular sight. Versailles had a small number of restrooms, which made issues worse. Of the approximately 700 rooms in the palace, just 9 had a semi-functional bathroom. Rather, the 4,000 residents who lived there on a daily basis would just go potty wherever it was most convenient, which was frequently under stairwells or in hallways. Versailles was characterized as a lovely combination of deceased cats, urine, excrement, slaughtered pigs, standing water, and mosquitoes by one visitor in 1764. The chamber pots were haphazardly emptied out. Although the flush toilet was created in 1596, it wasn't until 1851 that it became widely used. The other methods for getting rid of garbage weren't all that enjoyable. The majority of people relied on chamber pots, public outhouses, or just a hole in the ground. Sometimes, when folks had to empty their chamber pots, they would throw them out the window, endangering onlookers below. Not even royalty was spared. In one version, Marie Antoinette and her sister-in-law, the Comtesse of Provence, were strolling through an inner courtyard when the contents of a chamber pot that was visible from an upper window doused them with water. A fashionable new bathroom accessory was the bidet. The term bidet comes from the French for pony or small horse, referring to the manner one must straddle the bowl in order to utilize it. Although its exact invention date is unknown, Christophe de Rosier installed a bidet in the royal family's home around 1710. Prior to the invention of indoor plumbing, bidets were merely basins. Bidets were a favorite of the French nobility, and like many other things linked to hygiene, they were symbols of rank. Napoleon's will even contained a silver bidet. In brothels after the French Revolution, bidets gained popularity. If someone wasn't fortunate enough to afford a bidet, they simply had to use whatever was on hand. Leaves, grass, newspapers, corn cobs, seashells, or their own hand. The topic of menstruation was taboo, except for the Queen. The 18th century was a taboo period era unless you were a member of the nobility. Since creating a royal successor was one of the Queen's main responsibilities, courtiers and ambassadors, who closely monitored Marie Antoinette's fertility, had a lot to say about her menstrual cycle. On the subject of menstruation hygiene, however, far less is known for non-royals. Dictionnaire portatif des arts et métiers, an anonymous publication, has a description of a hygiene product from the 1700s. These clothes, known as chauffoirs, were worn for both menstruation and postpartum bleeding. They were made of layers of linen that hung from a string around the waist. Mercury was often used to treat syphilis. Syphilis was dubbed the French disease since it initially surfaced in 1495 during the French siege of Naples. 3 centuries later, nothing was known about the illness, and the majority of treatments didn't work. Mercury was the most often used treatment for syphilis during the French Revolution. A number of techniques were used to give the substance: oral consumption, skin contact, plastering, fumigation, where the patient was exposed to fumes from burning mercury, and lastly, insertion into the urethra. People used lead makeup generously. All genders used cosmetics in the 18th century. People would apply a thick white foundation to their entire face and bright pink rouge to their cheeks in round or triangular shapes. Unfortunately, makeup was made with lead. Though lead was known to be toxic, this didn't stop the French from caking it on. Lead-based makeup would irritate and inflame the eyes, wear down teeth enamel, and even cause baldness. In some cases, it was even life-threatening. Hand-washed laundry and homemade soap were the norm. Although the first washing machine was invented in England in the 1780s, the devices were mostly available only to private institutions or wealthy homes. Instead, most people did their laundry by hand. Typically, people would bring their laundry to a river or stream and scrub it using a washboard or rocks. Soap was homemade until the end of the century. To make soap, a person had to boil animal fat, collect ash from the heath, reduce it to lye, and combine the lye with the fat. The resulting soap would have been too abrasive to use on the skin, so it was primarily used for laundry. In 1790, however, French chemist Nicolas Leblanc invented a process of converting salt into sodium ash, which is used to make paper, glass, porcelain, and soap. This development made soap easier to manufacture and more available to the masses. Smiles were viewed as rude because dental care was so poor. In the 18th century, dental hygiene was lacking. It seemed sense that most people's teeth decayed. A dentist was nothing more than an embellished tooth remover during this era. Not even being the monarch of France could guarantee good dental treatment. King Louis XIV, also referred to as the Sun King, had a overzealous dentist extract all of his upper teeth. His palate was so severely injured by this that soup would always flow out of his nose. It was frowned upon to smile, as most people had ugly teeth. A controversy at court arose when French artist Madame Vigée-Lebrun painted herself with a toothy smile in the 1780s. But by century's end, wearing teeth to smile was significantly more common.